Welcome to another episode of Talking About Records. My name is G.I. Sanders from NTX Vinyl, a small chain of independent record stores just north of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Also, we have an online shop, which you can access via our website, ntxvinyl.com. If you haven't already subscribed on YouTube or followed on Facebook, Instagram, wherever you may be watching this, please do. Really appreciate it. Today's topic is an interesting one. Organization. Now, if you're a record collector, like myself, has been collecting for many years, this may seem like table stakes. Like, why do we need to talk about organizing records? This is a no-brainer. Obviously, you do it this way. Well, I can tell you from the amount of discussion and questions I see from collectors, new and old, that it's not one size fits all, right? And there's no right or wrong answer here. I'm simply going to go through my experience organizing my own collection. Maybe that will be helpful for you, give you some tips, give you some directions or some ideas, whether you're a new collector and you kind of just haven't gotten started organizing, or maybe you're a collector who does have a lot of records and is just kind of unorganized and needs to take that next step to get organized, right? So it's an interesting topic. I'm going to dive into, again, kind of how I've done it throughout the years, and hopefully that will provide some guidance if needed. Now, the first thing to talk about, I think there's two factors to consider right up front in regards to how to organize and why you should organize. And I think the first thing is the size of your collection, because obviously if you have 100 records, that's very different than if you have, let's say, 5,000 records in regards to how you should organize them. Also, the other thing that drastically impacts this discussion is the amount of space you have, or the amount of storage and the type of storage. And so, again, this is going to be different for everybody based on those two factors, but I'm going to try and keep that in mind as I kind of talk through things. So, the first thing is in regards to quantity of records. Let's talk about what a small collection versus a large collection would look like. I'm going to define a small collection, let's say, less than 100 records or say would be small. And then as you go up from there, several hundred or thousands of records would be a large. So a small collection, less than 100, the first question is do you need to organize it? And that's a very good question, because if you've only got, 20, 30 records, you're just starting out, maybe you're a couple months in or, a year in, and you're just kind of casually collecting, you probably don't even need to organize your records. You probably got them on one little shelf or in one little record rack, and it's kind of fun to just go through. They're in no particular order. They don't have to be by artist, by genre, by date, any of those types of things. And you just go through as if you're in the record store and you pick out what you're going to play. And if you've got, again, less than 100 records, that's a very viable solution. Where that starts to break is when you get over 100 records, or again, you get a couple hundred records. And then the problem is at that point is, you're like, hey, I really want to, I know I have this album by, the Rolling Stones. But if you've got 250 records, that'll take you a while to find it. It's hard to memorize where they all are, especially if you're putting them back randomly in different spots every time. And so for me, that's one of the most important things here as far as why you should organize, is just from an efficiency standpoint. I know for me personally, vinyl's already completely inconvenient in regards to how you listen to it, right? The last thing I need is to spend more time actually just searching for a record I want to find. That can be really frustrating for me. I know, like from my collection, I've misplaced records before and then gone to find them, even as organized as I am. And that gets really tough because I'm like, I know I own this, that I just can't find it, right? And so the ability to find something really quickly within your collection, I think, is probably, for me personally, the most important thing as to why you should organize. Because I know when I want to hear something and I think, oh man, I haven't heard that album in a long time, I want to be able to go grab it and get it on right away without having to hunt for it, right? There's definitely a thrill to the hunt when you go shopping for records, but for me personally, when I want to listen to something and I know I own it, I just want to be able to find it quickly. So, but again, that's not necessarily the case when you've got a really small collection and you can kind of keep it more, organized in a miscellaneous fashion, because it's just fun for you to kind of look through, right? So that's a little bit about the quantity. Now, as far as storage, hopefully you can have your collection all in one place, or at least nearby. But I know a lot of people have one shelf in one room and they've got another shelf in their bedroom, just because it's how their home or their listening environment is set up. So that can definitely dictate your organizational process as well, right? So as you get past quantity, let's say you've got 100 or 100 plus records, or even thousands of records, whatever it may be. Then you get into the really fun and interesting topic of, okay, how should it be done? Well, again, there's no right or wrong answer. I think most people would anchor on doing it alphabetically. That's kind of the default, right? That's what I do, and I'll talk you through that. But there's lots of other ways. There's, you know, people who organize their record collection by year, so the date that album was released. I've seen people who will rearrange their collection based on the color of the album. So if you look at the spine of the colors, they'll have all the red spines, then all the blue spines, then all the white spines, which is really cool looking. But for me, it would drive me insane because then I'd never know how to find where an album is, right? Same with the year. Like I could take a guess, but if I'm off by a year or two, then I'm left searching for that album. So for me, it comes down to organizing alphabetically. Now, I don't organize all of my records together alphabetically. I break them up by genre. That's what works for me. And I've pretty much got my collection, which is a couple thousand records, broken down into 4 or 5 different genres, more or less. There's a few subsets. But for me, my main collection, which is the majority of what I collect, which is what you see behind me, is my rock collection. Now, for me, rock includes classic rock, alternative rock, metal, punk, pretty much anything that kind of fits under an overarching umbrella of rock. I simply don't have enough punk records just to have a dedicated punk shelf, enough metal records, enough, you know, I could probably do just classic rock. I do have enough of those. Same with alternative rock. But again, like to me, I lump them all in together because when I'm looking through, again, the R's, if I'm looking at, you know, Radiohead, Rage Against the Machine, Rolling Stones, whatever, those are all underneath the same umbrella to me, relatively. The other genres I break into would be, you know, country, which for me is mostly just classic country and outlaw country, so I don't have any subsections there. R&B, soul, all kind of go into one. I also have, for me personally, I have like hip hop, any reggae I might have are all kind of in that R&B soul, simply just because I don't have enough of those to create their own dedicated space. Some point I might, and then I would break those out. Same with jazz and even some blues. I have a dedicated section just for those. And within all of those subgenres, I have them alphabetized by the artist name or the band name. Now, the only caveat there, or I guess the main caveat there, and this is somewhat debated and comes up all the time, is do you organize alphabetically within your genre? Do you alphabetize by the band name or the artist's first name or last name? So for example, my collection, if I'm going to find, first of all, if I'm going to find the Beatles, it's going to be under B, not the. I don't take in consideration the you know, the in front of the name. So that's me personally. I don't, maybe some people have a whole row of thes, and that would be very annoying to me. Same could be said with first name, last name. I go by last name, so if I'm going to find Bob Dylan, I'm not going to B. I'm going to D for Dylan. But there's a lot of people who go off of first name, and I know that's a real thing. It's weird as hell to me, but that's just a personal preference. Like I said, there's no rhyme or reason, no right or wrong answer to that. It's really just what you are used to. Now, I will say the streaming services, they will, if you stream through, you know, a library of artists, they will put Bob Dylan under B, and you know who else would do it is Discogs. They have everything by first name. That's annoying to me, and for whatever reason, I've just never adopted to that and accepted that. So for me, it's by last name of a solo artist or by band name, not counting the, you know, the in front or an A in front, that type of thing. So if I go to find a record, the first thing I think of is, okay, what kind of mood am I in? What kind of mood am I in? Am I going to listen to something kind of upbeat or rock, or maybe I want to do something country? One genre I forgot, I do have my soundtracks broken out. So I've got an independent cube just for soundtracks. I also have an independent cube just for my audiophile records, which are primarily mobile fidelity records. So I don't have tons of those, but I've got enough just to put them in one spot because I do treat those as kind of a unique genre. So again, for me, as I go to play something, I will zero it down by genre. If I want to play, if I'm in the mood for something, you know, R&B or jazz, I'll go to that genre, and then from there I'll go alphabetical to think, oh, you know, I want to hear, you know, Otis Redding, so I'll go to my R&B soul section, I'll go to the R section and go through the Otis records. Now, for diving even deeper, I try my best to within that artist. So again, let's take Otis Redding. I'm going to take, let's say I've got 10 or 15 Otis Redding records. I'm going to do my best when I organize those and I put those on the shelf to put them in chronological order for the most part. I'm not overly picky about that. With some of my artists, like for example, like the Beatles, which is up here, this whole thing, a nice big section. I will do my best to keep like the early Beatles to the left, and then it kind of goes left to right as far as the chronological order of when those albums were released, and things like compilations will go at the end of that section. That's typically how I do it. But again, so for me, it's pretty simple. It's break it down by genre, and then within that genre, break it down alphabetically, whichever way you prefer, and then keep it chronological within the artist. A lot of this obviously depends on how large your collection is. Again, if you've only got a couple albums by most artists, then the chronological thing doesn't really matter that much, because if I only had 3 Beatles albums, then it doesn't really matter which one's first to last, because I can find the one I need right away. So again, it's all about efficiency to me. So I think when you're organizing your collection, think about efficiency. And it's like, hey, what's going to help me find the records I want to play the fastest? Like, that's the way I think about organization, because it's about maximizing the time spent listening to the records versus kind of searching for the records, right? So that's how I do it. Again, no right or wrong answer. I'd love to hear how you do it. I know there's a lot of different opinions and a lot of different ways to categorize. As far as my collection goes, I've gotten to a certain size where I don't reorganize. That sounds fun, honestly. Just like reorganizing the furniture in a room. It's kind of neat to change things up. But for me personally, with the number of records I own, like, that's just not feasible. It would take me a long time to reorganize my collection in any way, shape, or form. And if I ever wanted to get it back, it would take another long time to do that. So I'm kind of stuck in my method, and I'm staying with it just because of how large the collection is. But if you've got 100 records, or maybe even a couple hundred, you could reorganize them, and that could be cool. There's the famous scene in High Fidelity, or John Cusack's reorganizes his whole collection and is doing it autobiographically or whatever. It's a super fun idea to think about, not super fun to actually execute. I promise you that. So, but again, you got a smaller collection, you've got a more manageable, then you can absolutely get creative and do things like organize them by color, organize them by year, organize them by your, maybe just by your favorites or something like that. Those things are all very creative and fun when they're manageable. So think about those things based on the size of your collection. Think about it based on the room and the environment and the storage you have, and then think about what works for you as far as when you go to listen to a record. Are you doing it based on mood? Are you doing it based on anything else, any other criteria that you kind of think of? For me, it's mainly based on, like, hey, what do I feel like listening to? And then from an organization standpoint, how can I zero in on it the fastest to grab what I want? Or if I'm not sure what I'm looking for, how can I browse in a casual fashion that seems organized in my brain, that will make sense? And again, you get a record out, and then how easy it is for you to get it back into your collection in order without having to think about it too much. So again, all about efficiency. Just can't say it enough. So that's a bit about organization. I don't have a ton of other tips or tricks. It's pretty basic stuff in my mind. But again, it breaks down to the how you want to alphabetize and how you want to break out your genres. And it's about getting to your records as fast as possible to enjoy them. So on that note, I'll wrap this up. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed some tips about organization. And again, I'd love to hear how kind of you organize your records. If there's anything I hadn't thought of or touched on, which I'm sure there is, leave it in the comments. Let me know. I'd really appreciate it. My name's G.I. Sanders. This has been another episode of Talking About Records. Really appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time.